Welcome back to Mortal Kombat Armageddon. So let's explore Netherrealm.
Oh, so hot you're literally entering steaming. Oh, hello there.
Hey,
Oh, it's you.
Hey, Draman.
But it's not.
Did you speak up? I couldn't hear you.
It's technically not hell, though.
Well, it is.
Even we cannot be pedantic for the situation.
Well, the Netherrealm is the Mortal Kombat universe's hell.
It's surrounded by bugs.
Yes, it's to represent the fact that he's rotten and everything.
Well,
Okay, let me put it this way.
I kind of got that vibe, Tio, from the lava and the rocks and the smoke. You don't need the books.
Okay, let me put it this way. It's not hell in the same way that the Bible describes hell. It's hell in the sense that it's a fiery place full of evil. But like, it doesn't have anything to do with how hell is described in the Bible. That's basically it.
Am I using a cheat code?
Yes.
Also, to be fair, Pedro, the more time passed, the more the games passed, the more Netherrealm's, depiction actually do match, the ideological, aspect of hell, conceptualized in medieval ages. This also comes to a point in Scorpio's Revenge, where the little purpose of that his soul is trapped there to be tormented for all eternity for Shinnok's pleasure,
Yeah, I guess that is true. I guess to be fair, yeah, Scorpion did go to Hanzo did go to Netherrealm when he was killed by Sub-Zero. So I guess, yeah, technically, I guess you can say. Draman ignored the incurred different from his flesh wounds, and he's like, over here, you fight well, good long, but your skills will not save it from the evils that wait with below. That was that was my cameo. See you, dude.
Okay. I'm curious. How many years were between the release of this game and the announcement and release of Mortal Kombat 9?
I believe 9 was announced in 2010.
Yes.
Remember that Jova MK versus DC happened in the meantime.
Yeah, we still have MK versus DC before 9.
Wait a minute, hold on. Do people consider MK versus DC MK8?
Yes,
Yes.
Ed Boon does. Ed Boon does. I can tell you that.
Regardless of that, Jova, it was a game that was done in between, meaning that, there was quite a distance between this and
the game is canon.
I'm mainly asking because I just realized that, yes, the next mainline Mortal Kombat game is called Mortal Kombat 9 instead of Mortal Kombat 8, even though this is technically the 7th.
Let me put it this way, Jova. By 2007, we had, with this one, 7 mainline Mortal Kombat games. Then came Mortal Kombat vs. DC. Then when Mortal Kombat came out, even though on the cover it just says Mortal Kombat, it's known as Mortal Kombat by the developers, and even when you download it when you check the PlayStation Store, it even says right there Mortal Kombat 9. So it's called Mortal Kombat 9, but the cover doesn't say it for some reason. Don't ask me why. So basically, if you eliminate all the variables, well, the only one that's left is MK vs. DC, and yes, Ed Boon also confirmed. And even that, and like that you said in the previous, I think it was in the Deception run. The Mortal Kombat 11 actually does reference MK vs. DC, so I guess that kind of confirmed. So basically, MK vs. DC is kind of confirmed to be a mainline game, basically.
Question: did Warner Brothers own Netherrealm by the time MK vs. DC was
No.
made?
It was the last game done under the Midway partnership.
It was just a partnership thing, and I'm guessing somebody at Warner Brothers was a big fan of Mortal Kombat, so.
So it's like, man, we need to make some good video games with our heroes. Let's play Midway.
Oh, okay. So I know that this was supposed to be the signal of a reboot to come, but okay. I've played Mortal Kombat vs. DC, but that was back when I'll just say this: I knew more about DC than I knew about Mortal Kombat at the time. So to clarify, what exactly was the canon state of the Mortal Kombat side of things and that stuff? Like, was this clearly taking place after 7? Was this taking place in the original timeline?
No,
or was it like
judging by the characters involved, it was kinda around after the original trilogy.
Apparently, Job, it takes place in between 3 and 4. That's the only. When you take a look at all the characters present and all their current
like I said,
personas.
Jova,
That's the only situation where it makes any sense.
And like I said, Jova, due to 11 status, establishing a multiverse of some kind, it's easily dismissible, at least for my case, as an AU on its own.
I put it this way, Jova.
Similar to how Shaolin Monks is.
It kind of works like Professor Layton versus Ace Attorney in the sense that it's technically canon, but you can pretty much ignore it because it doesn't really have any bearing on the main series.
Hey, at least we got to see Shao Kahn get sent to the Phantom Zone, Superman 2 style.
That is true. That is true, actually.
And we got to see Darkseid sent to Netherrealm.
Mm-hmm.
You see, that's just a Tuesday for him.
To me,
so I'm like, why is he affected by this?
To me,
no. The reason he's affected by it, Dez, is that he's not the one in control of the situation. See, you can withstand hell if you're the one in charge, but if suddenly you become the victim of it, it becomes a whole new story, now don't it?
To me, the highlight was watching Joker finally get some physical payback on Batman.
Oh yeah.
Because basically in MK vs DC, Jova, there's a plot device called the Rage, which is basically an excuse to make sure all characters, even the ones that don't have superpowers, are on equal strength, basically. And it's thanks to that you can finally have a scenario where the Joker is able to physically beat down superheroes. So
yeah.
And then we got Injustice,
which instead has literal magic pills.
I have actually yet to play those. I have the first one, but I haven't actually started it yet.
Injustice
I definitely recommend the first
weird...
one at least.
I think that the second, I argue, at least because of roster size and how it actually plays. Story-wise, Injustice has these kind of hilarious love-hate kind of relationship, where the way the stories are structured, are very engaging. He wants to see where things are going, but the premise can be told. Voice. I guess we forgot to download for this second.
For a moment I thought my audio may be messed up.
Go ahead, Teo.
Undead Legion rushes to feed. Please stop and dipshit.
Okay, basically another tutorial.
Bounce round.
So, okay, I'm just gonna go out on a limb here and say that from what I've played of MK versus DC, if one of these games had to be the send-off to Mortal Kombat, I get the feeling that the crossover would have ended up being the better send-off in this game. Like, that's not to say that this game is terrible.
It's not terrible, but the behind-the-scenes development troubles really show in the final product.
Well, not only that, but the actual result is... Okay. I'm sure the arcade mode is fine and stuff. But, man, stuff like the story mode does not feel as engaging. Like, okay, let's compare this to something like Smash Bros. Ultimate. Say what you will about how the story mode doesn't feel as much like the story mode, but the size and scope of that story mode alone, for as little as there is in World of Light, I'd say would at least allow Smash Bros. Ultimate to be a proper send-off of the Smash Bros. Franchise. I mean, let's be honest, it's probably not going to be the send-off to the franchise because Smash Bros. Makes Nintendo way too much money, but Smash Bros. Ultimate, that feels like that could easily be a send-off. This, on the other hand...
So basically, what's going to be next then? We're going to have Smash Brothers Ultimate Definitive Edition.
Hold on, Wibs. Well, that's the thing, Jova. I suppose, but for many people, this game is all about having a finally Mortal Kombat game where all the rosters, all of the previous characters are under one roster. Which, ironic enough, it's kind of the same appeal that Smash Ultimate has. So, in a way, the intricacies of this kind of mode are completely ignored.
True, yeah. However, as you guys have mentioned, there were other issues with the game that led to it getting a somewhat mixed reception.
I actually don't really mind the game in general.
Well, the problem. Here's the thing, Teo. The problem is that because of the high character count, unlike with Trilogy, where it was easier to balance everything out, compared to Deception and even Deadly Alliance, the fighters and the overall gameplay is nowhere near as refined and balanced as the previous two games are.
Just like something like DBZ Budokai Tenkaichi 3, and just that game, I prefer to appreciate the unbalanced state for the sake of a bigger roster.
To be fair, it's always best that you have both qualities. Like, yeah, Smash Bros. Ultimate is not the pinnacle of balancing, but it does feel like a very well-refined take on the Smash Bros. Formula. The gameplay in this game does not feel like it has that same level of refinement. Again, I'm sure that there are a lot of people who did get a kick out of the fact that everyone was back to this roster. But considering how a lot of the roster could be considered fodder and how, well, a lot were problematic, if not outright hated or whatnot, I'm not quite sure that would have been as great a selling... Yeah, that too.
I said define problematic.
Oh, problematic. Well, for instance, there is, again, Striker, which goes without saying. There's people like Shinjoku who, again, who did not leave a well enough good impression. There's the whole Red Dragon faction, which is like, nobody cares.
No, not really. No, thank you. I don't want to continue the trials. Just fuck off.
I mean, that's just the thing, though. I mean,
free ice cream.
Now, look, I'm sure that a lot of these characters may have had some fans, but it's not like they were all, that great, or it's like people were demanding that they come back so that they can be in this last thing. Like, I'm pretty sure the fan base would have overall been fine with a few characters like Cobra being let go if we.
I think it's because too. See, unlike with the DBZ games, which outside of Budokai 3 and Fighters, those games have always been mostly about fan service first and fighting mechanics second. Whereas Mortal Kombat, the best Mortal Kombat games are the ones who, as Jova put, managed to reach a really good balance, having a good roster, but at the same time having good balance. Whereas that's the main reason why Mortal Kombat 9 was so beloved when it first came out, because it really was the best game in the series gameplay-wise in a long time.
Mortal Kombat was definitely not at a pace where people were regarding it more for its story, so I can see why if the gameplay was not as satisfying, people wouldn't be as satisfied.
Well, fans love the hardcore Mortal Kombat fans do love the storyline, Joe. It's more so the fact that
no. I'm not saying nobody liked the storyline. What I'm saying is, like, well, the storyline was not what Mortal Kombat was recognized for as much, or at the very least, it wasn't the priority
for mainstream audiences. Yeah, true. Like when it comes to the actual storyline and the overall characters, arcs, and everything, it's mostly the hardcore fans who are deeply. But the casual players normally just fight or fight online or something like that. Or just play for the storyline once and that's it, maybe. I don't know.
Oh, and don't get me wrong, story mode can be important still. Like, there's a reason we were very critical of Mortal Kombat 6 because of its story of sorts. But there's also a reason that the story mode of 6 itself alone was not enough to, tank the game, even though the story mode was kind of bad. And to be fair, it was mainly bad because of its main protagonist, which is still a major factor of it, but still though, despite that, the gameplay of that game seems to have held up, at least better than this game did.
It's a direct consequence of the fact that John Vogel had apparently he managed to improve immensely right before he took a backseat, because apparently he wrote the MK vs DC, and the dialogue in that game is miles ahead of this in Deception, so it's weird.
Maybe as some consultant with actual DC writers.
Probably.
But yeah, which would you say would have been the better send-off? This game or MK versus DC?
Well, MK vs. DC was mostly just what the fuck kind of... Because the thing is, the announcement of MK vs. DC, Joe, back in the day, came out of nowhere. Because...
Yeah. Because it was trying to be like, hey, Marvel vs. Capcom, let's do that with DC.
Like, people were curious. People were curious and looking forward.
To do their own version.
But people were looking forward.
What are you doing?
Yeah, Taven, what are you doing?
Really? God, Taven, just when we were hoping you wouldn't be as stupid as Shinjoku, you're helping freaking Shinnok.
I put it this way. Back when MK vs. DC was announced, people were curious and definitely looking forward to see where this was going, but they were also confused because it seemed like a weird idea that came out of nowhere. With First Light vs. Attorney, it was an idea that actually makes sense because the two franchises were very there was already a connection between the two franchises, and one inspired the other and everything. Not to mention both games were killer apps of the. Not to mention, there was a lot of fan fiction and fan theories about what will happen if this character met this. So it was a crossover that made sense to exist. That MK versus DC.
Even I knew about that before I knew about the two franchises.
MK versus DC, on the other hand, really felt like a weird idea that came out of nowhere and for little to no reason. Don't get me wrong, we still got a good game in the end. We did get a good.
It also painted the wrong picture because it came around not a tail end, but in a period of time where DC Comics was not in a controversial state, but was notorious for having introduced very excessive violence in its comic and having killed a lot of characters in very not anticlimactic but gratuitous kind of ways.
Not to mention, Joe, it gave Ed Boon and his team a problem having to deal with DC's mandates, because as DC made it very clear when they're making that game, we do not want to see our characters do any kind of gored up or doing any kind of fatality. So instead of the DC characters having their own fatalities, they have quote-unquote heroic brutalities.
Only the good guys. The bad guys still are labeled as fatalities, but the violence we apply is so basic.
I do feel like this was more perfected in Injustice in regards to, making very violent.
That's the thing, Java. Even MK11 convinced DC to actually have the actual Joker as a playable character. That shows how much time has passed.
Yeah.
Now I am cursed to preside over this wretched Netherrealm.
So basically, this is still before.
Why are you giving this guy the time of day?
Because he's kind of a moron as well. Not as moronic as Shujinko, but he also has his moments.
It's also, you have to also to remember the fact, Jova, that being a demigod and everything, Taven is kind of BS. If he sees someone like an elder god in danger, he feels compelled that we need to be prepared.
That's actually a good point.
Gee, Gio, maybe it's like the elder god should have warned him. By the way, don't pay any mind to a guy called Shinnok. He's kind of bad.
No, it's the thing, Jova. Even before Reboot, it was pretty clear that the elder gods were also BS on their own, and Shinnok could do whatever the fuck he wanted.
Not to mention, Jova, that would require.
You know what's ironic? The Elder Gods were actually wise in Mortal Kombat Annihilation against Shinnok. God.
Not to mention, movie-wise, but game-wise, Jova, that would require the Elder Gods to actually give a shit about something that's not themselves. So.
Hey, they finally did in Mortal Kombat 11, and they were still.
By the time we're recording this,
resides within the realms is beyond belief. That he requires my aid is even more baffling.
Oh my god.
To be fair, he has no way of knowing that Shinnok is evil from his perspective.
I'm just gonna say this. Imagine the frustration.
The Elder Gods are good.
Okay. I'm just gonna say this. Imagine the frustration of any veteran Mortal Kombat player having to help Shinnok. I mean, again, I get it. It's dramatic irony. It's something that we, the viewers, are aware of, but the player character themselves isn't. But man, the fact that Taven goes so easily along with this is what's frustrating. Like, he really does not have many questions to ask other than, I wonder what you could have done to end up in a place like this. Like, maybe try and connect the dots there, son.
I love how we're playing this so dramatically when it's just another test.
Alright. Now it's time to defeat all of these guys as well.
But,
I'm surprised. I'm surprised. One thing I'm surprised at is that there's no one, even as like a parody, and there was no character in these games going, "It's combat time" or something like that, like from Defenders of the Realm.
No, we never actually get a proper catchphrase even in the reboot trilogy. Not really.
So, but anyway, going
the
back to
we got is Johnny Cage referencing The Shining.
Anyway, the reason I brought up my question earlier was like, well, again, apparently if Warner Brothers hadn't bought NetherRealm, more MK versus DC probably
would have been the last.
Yes, the final MK game.
So that's why I asked, which do you think would have been the better Mortal Kombat send-off between this and MK versus DC?
Hey, but this way.
I still say this because MK versus DC having a limited roster of his own has some very, very glaring omissions.
For me, it's one of those things where, like, if you prioritize fan service and like Teo does, then I guess Armageddon. But but in terms of which one is the overall better made game, then I would have to give it to MK versus DC. So basically, it just depends on which kind of farewell finale do you prefer, basically.
As someone who has played MK versus DC, I'd have to say that game, I feel like it has better story, better gameplay, and even an interesting sense of finality. Like, yes, that's the perfect way to deal with Shao Kahn for good. Like, I mean, and you know, honestly, I find it more of a fun end to the original MK timeline than, well, again, the apparent destruction of this timeline. Also, Liu Kang just really gets a bum rap near the end of this timeline. Can I get it? Why
There
they
we go,
get
that's
it,
what
but-
you're supposed to do. Destroy the totems in order.
It's like a puzzle.
Basically, yeah. Alright, there we go.
But,
So basically that's it. Just
do you-
beat all the pillars that are in flames. There you go.
what do you think, Dwibs and Deji?
What about Liu Kang?
No, about
more
which.
so about-
Well, I think those will be in a better position to answer that question, Jova, when we actually get to MK versus DC, maybe.
Oh, I thought he played that. Never mind. What
No, I haven't.
So
about you, Dej? Have you played them?
No, but I've seen a lot of Let's Plays of them though.
So, do you have an opinion on the matter of which you think would have been a better send-off if these had been the end of Mortal Kombat?
That's hard, man. Because at least with Armageddon, it's trying to do that everybody is here thing. So it's doing a big send-off to it.
I guess the matter is how it does it, and do even all the characters even show up in the story mode? Like, I feel like there
No.
are some that...
well,
As you've seen, Jova, a lot of them are just there for a quick cameo.
the whole everything is here applies to the arcade mode, basically.
Yes. DC is hilariously dumb.
If it helps, the problem is the more the rushed nature of it, because not everybody in this game has a bio, and by the way, the bios aren't even in the game itself. You have to get these videos that were made to promote the game.
Whack-a-mole.
And don't worry, we will watch them in an extra part of sorts. But and let's just say the arcade endings of this game are, let's say, lacking.
That...
Like the rush nature of the game. That's where the rush nature of the game is the most obvious, Joel. I'll just say that.
From what you said, even more lacking than Deceptions, which was literally going
Well,
back to the still images.
Yeah,
thing.
yeah. Let me put it this way, Jova. This time we didn't even have time to make some still images. That's how rushed we were.
It's just text only.
No. It's not just text only. It's text combined with a voice narrating things, and the fighter on screen just doing random moves. It's weird.
Oh dear.
You can clearly tell they had to basically rush the fuck out of this game because money was tight. And Midway really wanted the game to be out because remember, this game came out in 2006 in the PS2 and Xbox, and 2007 on the Wii, which basically meant 2 to 3 years after Deception. And remember, at this point in time, Midway was only making money from Mortal Kombat games. Everything else was just failures. So
I suppose we can count our blessings that DC and Warner Brothers bought up Netherrealm, because
yeah, basically.
For trouble.
much as I do think MK versus DC would have been a better send-off, it still would have been a shame to see Mortal Kombat ending on such terms.
Well, Jova, MK vs. DC probably was what made the purchase possible because, I mean, I'm guessing somebody at Warner Bros. Interactive really liked Boon's work in that game because they, even though the game was a box office flop, a sales flop, sorry, Warner Bros. Interactive still felt the need to buy Midway. So I guess somebody recognized that Boon's work still.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to check the What Happened video of MK vs. DC to see if that mentions why Warner Brothers bought them. Either way, though, based off of where we are now, definitely a good decision.
Also, good old
got
Havoc,
us more.
Mr. Chaos himself.
Yeah, Havoc, that guy.
Well, it was fun. It was fun in Deception, to be fair. Remember, he's the guy who literally led us. Remember, Chaos Realm does everything backwards. So instead of stopping us from entry, he just allowed us to enter into the city. Period. So.
Yeah, but again, it does harken back to how I feel like again. Whereas with Smash Brothers Ultimate, everyone being back was cool because of the variety, the wonder, and all the cool stuff with the characters coming back.
There is one
A lot
thing
of which
we should
were
mention
big
about Ultimate, though,
requests.
Jova. Because pretty much most of the returning characters in Ultimate, hell, almost all actually, already, for the most part, Sakurai and his team just had to take their already pre-existing moves and just copy-paste them. Like, for example, the returning Smash 4 characters play exactly the same in Ultimate, you know. So obviously there were some minor changes, yes, but for the most part it was very easy for them to just basically just put everybody in there. Most of the characters in Armageddon are making their 3D debut. They didn't have any pre-existing physics and models to copy paste, so a lot of stuff had to be done from the ground. Like Motaro, for example. Motaro, this is the first time we see Motaro in an arcade mode in 3D. So obviously they had to create a 3D Motaro from the ground up. So there was a lot more work and difficulty involved in making this game compared to Ultimate. Because with Ultimate, most of the ground up was already made.
It's just they pretty much reused stuff from Smash 4.
Yeah, okay. So it was much easier for Sakurai to do Ultimate than it was for Ed Boon to make this, because a lot of stuff had to actually be made from the ground up in comparison.
How much easier is up for debate, because while a lot of characters could be taken from Smash 4, there were still a sizable amount that still had to be remade for Ultimate, and given the fact that, okay, wow,
you also have to realize the circumstances of things as well.
Well, okay, that goes without saying. However, again, when I compare this to Ultimate, I'm not talking about so much, the dev experiences or what was involved. I'm talking strictly about the outcomes. Like, yes,
sure.
I do recognize that there were definitely different circumstances here and there. I'm just pointing out how Ultimate still managed to do stuff better here. And I would argue that some of that stuff is sort of regardless of the dev experience here. Like, again, now, this game is ambitious, like Deception. However, ambition does not always equal greatness in the end, unfortunately.
Yep.
It feels like one of those cases where they did want to take a lot of risks, but a lot of those risks did not pan out here.
Yeah, that's one thing I will always give to Ed Boon, is that never a dull moment with him, because even when Mortal Kombat does some kind of mistake, it's always interesting at the very least. It's always something. There's always something fun to talk about with every game, so that's also something I appreciate.
Every game, even Special Forces.
Well, so Ed Boon wasn't involved in that, so.
Okay. To be fair, I guess it's interesting to talk about how Special Forces is amazingly. Yeah, like, it kind of is a marvel at how boring that game is. Granted, I suppose us using
about the versus Capcom.
Let me put it this way. When it comes to actually talking about stuff, yes, the Mythology is the more interesting game. Hey, Shiva. Cutscene now, I think. Yeah.
We have reached the top chamber at last.
Shinnok really just can't do anything on his own these days.
It's more of a case that he wants servants. Sorry.
Here? The spire is ours!
Weren't you dead?
Well,
Pretty sure you were.
Well, remember, Jova, a lot of Mortal Kombat characters get brought back for various mystical reasons, so it's not like this is that out of that field.
Well, true, yeah, but usually they show that. Shiva, I'm pretty sure the last time we saw
It had
her,
already happened, Jova, with stuff like it happened with stuff like Deception, Jova, where despite having to act in a specific way along the timeline, characters that should have been dead just showed up being alive for no real reason.
I guess with Deception, we could maybe chalk that up to, oh, this does take place in this part of the timeline.
Well, yeah, that is true. We have to remember too.
Well.
Yeah, we have to remember too that the conquest mode in Deception takes place over the course of the entire timeline. So
apparently, even starts before it. So
yeah.
That. Whereas this is supposedly all happening after. Like this is like again. At the cusp of the end of the timeline.
Yeah, this is literally at the end. Taven is literally going straight from the end of this campaign to fighting a Blaze. So yes.
So here's how I would have done it. Just have it be that, oh, Shiva's here because she's dead. But no, this implies that she's alive and looking to conquer Netherrealm.
We're still in Netherrealm anyway.
Let me put it in raw terms, Jova. Shiva's here because the whole theme of this game is everybody's here, so Shiva's here. Basically, there you go.
Pretty much.
It's a common problem with story-driven fighting games where a character will die in the story, but then later on the developers want to use that character for the roster, but so they have to come up with some kind of reason why the character is suddenly alive again. Question. If I remember correctly, there's at least one point in Tekken where Hayashi does die. Right?
Well, in general, characters. Well, the definitive death happens at the end of Tekken 7, Dej, but that's the thing. There are several Tekken games where a couple of characters do seem to be dead, but then shows up in the later games of just being fine. Although it's more of less of a case of resurrection and more of a case of I escaped death through a different mean.
Yeah.
Shujinko was literally thrown into a volcano and was dead for 20 years, and then they brought him back for Tekken 4.
I got better.
It's a common thing that fighting game fans let.
Like look at them Bison Jova, for example. He made an entire point of having resurrection machines for himself.
To be fair,
Don't bring Heihachi back for Tekken 8.
With a new voice, with a first voice actor, Dej, I'm not sure.
Okay. Japan is not consistent on that. Sometimes they're like, no, the actor's dead, the character's staying dead. Other times they're like, okay, we'll just get a new one.
It's a better compromise. That is the fact that yes, he will be back, but not anytime soon. Give him like at least 2 games. Just for the sake of having a new voice actor properly, introduced here.
That said, though, the way Tekken 7 did kill him off did seem like it was trying to go for finality.
Yeah.
Again, that being said, maybe they'll just have him back and relegate him to arcade mode. Maybe. But anyway, my point is like, well, again, in this fighting game, look, I'm okay with characters coming back from the dead. It's just when you don't explain squat about why they're dead.
Yeah, you're a comic book fan. You're used to that.
Yeah. Like, look. You want to bring a character back from the dead and hopefully do it in a tasteful way, that's fine. Wow. Go ahead, do it.
Wow, like even if it's followed by a cutscene, they still don't even acknowledge Kintaro. Like you take down Kintaro, then Kintaro just disappears from the game altogether.
Yes, even Kintaro just disappeared. They didn't even give a closing text for them.
Your brother. Yes,
like, I think the best way to describe this game story, it feels like fan fiction.
I mean, yeah.
Like, in the sense that, like, well, it's like, oh, suddenly this character appeared, but then they're gone. Oh, suddenly this character appeared. And, yeah, Taven, you're an idiot.
He is strong, quite strong, and a skilled warrior. I told you.
Dun, dun, dun.
Destroy my apparitions with ease.
Wow, Taven, you idiot.
So yeah, Dagon and Shinnok are working together.
And Dagon's an idiot too.
Yeah.
When will it get through your minds not to trust Shinnok?
Dagon, I'm not a god of my word, Dagon. All deals are off.
My success. Our success. There is more to this.
Oh, but it's okay. Dagon's like, yeah, whatever, let's still work together. Like, honestly, Dagon took that whole I'ma try and kill you thing very well.
Yep. It's kind of like Goro, how Goro in Mortal Kombat 4 takes the fact that that Kung Lao just fucking wounded him on the chest with his hat very well, all things considered.
Yeah.
It's because of
Like-
the whole warrior culture stick.
Like,
Although in this
Taven-
case, it's more different.
Like, okay, Taven, maybe he doesn't know Shinnok well enough, but Dagon does know Shinnok's deal. And the fact that Shinnok just blasted him is just an inconvenience to him. Even though that definitely looked like it hurt.
That's just a scratch.
Strange. Shinnok knew that Dagon had been to the Netherrealm, but he didn't mention it until I cleared his spire of invaders. Now he has sent me back to Earthrealm. None of this makes sense.
Just roll
Yeah,
along
just
with the
roll
plot.
with it,
Something about
Taven.
Shinnok's fall from grace.
It'll work out its way.
So yeah, let's ask
somehow.
Oren if he knows anything about this.
Let's just hope Oren's not dead.
Orin, are you all right?
No, what do you think?
Did Dagon do this?
Very good, Whips.
Oh, goody, Quan Chi.
Fucking Quan
I've
Chi.
seen him before.
I believe Quan Chi wants to prevent you from leaving Earthrealm. I've kept the portal open, but I'm growing weaker. You must go through now, or you will be trapped.
So,
I
let's
promise
just
you,
go back through.
I will find this
Alright, time for the final level.
with his life.
Yeah, we're almost done
I
actually.
said go through now, not make a speech.
One thing that is
Oren-
better than
Oren-
the
I think it would be better if the other gods don't watch over him, because that usually never ends up
Yeah,
well.
one thing that this game conquest mode has better over Deception, it's mercifully shorter instead of just going on forever.
Yeah.
No, well, honestly, if a story mode can be paced out well, have it be long.
Shao Kahn's
But
fortress.
yeah, I'm not gonna lie, it
Must be
feels
an
like they
open.
just really did not have much material
Quan
to
Chi is
work
already
with for the
inside.
story.
I must get
No.
away.
Unlike Deception, which had the proper budget and development time enough to properly realize what it was doing, this game, once again, clearly was done under very tight constraints.
I think it was around this point midway coffers were running severely low.
Yeah.
Like I said, Webs, Mortal Kombat was their only source of revenue. Everything else was a bomb. Like, literally, no. Mortal Kombat was the only thing keeping them afloat, and even then, it didn't last.
Hey, how dare you disrespect Ed, and Eddie, the misadventures like that?
Well, Deji, how many units did the
Oh
game
yeah,
sell?
that game was a thing.
Also,
about-
remember, it was also around, okay, I think a couple of years before this, there was the ambitious project that Traveler's Tales wanted to make Haven Call of the King, which also bombed spectacularly. They wanted to make a trilogy and, a cross-media franchise to boot, but nothing happened.
What about Unreal Tournament 3?
Yeah,
Yeah.
see you for the next part.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.